told your friend you're not okay.
Tonight, the K-pop world was rocked once again by a moment that appeared without a teaser, without warning, without a specific agenda, yet it stilled the entire timeline as if time itself were holding its breath. Incheon Airport on February 2nd seemed like any other day. Cold lights, hurried footsteps of passengers, the sound of suitcase wheels scraping against the floor, until the moment when BTS began to appear one by one. There was no grand intro, no big announcement, but their aura was always enough to shift the rhythm of the room. But amidst them all, there was one figure who suddenly changed the entire atmosphere: Jungkook. What was captivating tonight wasn't the crowd surrounding him, nor the flashy outfits that usually highlight airport fashion idols. Quite the opposite. Jungkook appeared with a style that was so simple, yet so mature. No flashy colors, no excessive details, no attempt to look flashy, but that was precisely what captivated ARMY. Even from a distance, his aura felt different, like someone who had moved beyond the wanting to be seen phase and entered the just being yourself phase. And strangely, that was what was most captivating. While the other members walked with their own distinct personalities, one casual, one classic, one playful, Jungkook stood on a spectrum that felt calmer yet more powerful. It wasn't because he wanted to be the center of attention, but because the energy he naturally carried drew everyone's attention to him. There was something about the way he walked, a steady rhythm, unhurried steps, a steady posture, an unfazed expression. It was as if the airport that night wasn't a transit point, but a stage waiting for him to walk across it. The fashion he chose tonight wasn't just clothing, it was an interpretation of the long growth he'd gone through. There was no hint of trying. No hint of hesitation. No trace of the kid who used to learn from his youngs. What was visible was someone who was fully formed, who had found his own color without having to shout to explain it. This was Jungkook at a different stage in his life, a version who was no longer searching for direction, but setting one. ARMY on social media responded immediately without waiting. His aura is different. So mature. This isn't your average idol anymore. The comments weren't coming because he was wearing something extreme, but because his composure was so powerful. It was as if the world had finally realized that Jungkook didn't need to be overly dramatic to stand out. He could simply be himself, and that alone was more than enough to make hundreds of cameras automatically turn in his direction. What made his appearance even more compelling was that his appearance didn't drown out BTS as a group. He didn't steal the spotlight. He didn't force himself to be the center of attention. Instead, he stood with them, bringing a new energy, more mature, more stable, more confident. It was as if he were silently saying, "I'm here with them, but I've also grown into someone different." A soft yet powerful statement. Seeing him tonight reminded me of his long journey. From the Maknae who used to follow, learn, and imitate, to an artist whose development was clear beyond explanation. Jungkook tonight was the result of years of practice, discipline, exploration, and the ups and downs of finding his identity. And all of this was reflected not in a grand stage, but in something as simple as airport fashion. Amidst flashing camera lights, resounding fan screams, and the never-quiet crowd of Incheon, Jungkook continued to walk calmly. He wasn't nervous, he wasn't awkward, he didn't seem like he was putting on a show. In fact, because of that calmness, his every step felt purposeful. The airport seemed like a space accustomed to his presence, as if he wasn't adjusting to the place, but rather the place adjusting to him. And perhaps that's why ARMY was so surprised tonight. Because there was no warning that a moment like this was coming. No news of a new project. No secret teasers. No rumors of a solo comeback. But the aura he carried felt like a subtle signal of something in the making. That there was a next chapter waiting to be opened. That there was a new page in his global journey that he was quietly writing. And after Jungkook disappeared behind the departure gate, the moment didn't stop there. While the spotlight usually dims once the members enter the sterile airport area, tonight the opposite happened, the discussion heated up. Many ARMYs began piecing together small signs they might have missed. Changes in his dress, his walk, his more focused expression, his way of distancing himself from the hustle and bustle without completely disappearing. It was as if scattered puzzle pieces were slowly coming together. Some fans even noticed something less obvious: no excessive accessories, none of the playful elements he used to often wear, no style experiments that seemed to suggest he was trying too many different things. Jungkook felt very purposeful tonight, as if everything had been chosen consciously. From the clean-cut jacket, the calm yet strong colors, to his steady stride, everything seemed to convey a message: I'm preparing something. And when BTS truly took off, photos and videos from ARMY at the airport began to circulate and be analyzed one by one. It wasn't just his fashion that was in the spotlight, but his energy. Some said his aura was sharper, others said his eyes looked more focused, and some even wrote that he looked like someone who had just made a big decision. Top K-pop members also received numerous DMs from followers who felt the same way, as if there was a subtle transition in Jungkook that couldn't be explained in simple words. A change that wasn't announced, but felt. A new chapter that wasn't highlighted by stage lights, but still luminous. Some K-pop fashion analysts who usually don't discuss airport looks even chimed in. They said that Jungkook's style tonight was the kind of style typically worn by someone developing a visual identity for a specific project, be it an album, a film, or a global campaign. Calm, strong, mature, not overbearing. An aesthetic that maintains mystery. And as the night wore on, more and more ARMYs realized that the moment was no coincidence. Jungkook isn't the type to suddenly change without reason. Every phase of his life always presents itself with small signs. When he focuses on music, his speech style changes. When he prepares for a major project, his routine changes. And this time, the change felt bigger, more profound, more meaningful. What made it all the more intriguing was that BTS wasn't on a major promotional schedule. No publicly announced schedule. There were no signs that they were heading to a special event. Precisely because of that, Jungkook's powerful presence tonight felt even more mysterious. If this was just a normal trip, why was his energy so intense? If this was just airport fashion, why was his aura so mature? If this was just a simple departure, why did it feel like the beginning of something big? And when the final photo of Jungkook from that night circulated, his gaze forward, his steps steady, his shadow falling long on the airport floor, many realized one crucial thing. Perhaps this was the new chapter he had been silently preparing for. Not something announced with a big poster, not a comeback with a lengthy teaser, but a change that began with something simple, the way he presented himself. Top K-pop also reminded us that in the world of K-pop, changes like this rarely happen without reason. If Jungkook had already made such a big impression just from an airport walkthrough, what would happen when he finally revealed the project he was building? And now, the entire ARMY was waiting. Not with anxiety, not with wild theories, but with confidence, that whatever Jungkook was preparing for, he was doing it wholeheartedly and without haste. Because that night in Incheon, he had already signaled, "I'm on my way to something bigger."